So today I want to talk about a couple of things in our Wednesday walkabout. I'm going to work as we walk about, but the theme for today is how much time does it take? Because one thing that I've realized in writing this book is I don't have the luxury of large expanses of time anymore, like a whole day that I could just work outside in the garden. I'm always working on the margins. So I've been kind of obsessed with how long does it take to do certain tasks. That way, if I'm fitting it in before, say, Stuart comes over to shoot a video, or before I'm getting ready to go on a Zoom call, or before I've got an appointment with QVC or something of that nature, then I can kind of squeeze those little tasks in between. So my question for you today is, what is something that you kind of procrastinate doing, but when you realize how little time it takes, that it keeps you from procrastinating because you think, oh, that's just like 2 minutes. For me, it's something like emptying the dishwasher, which I hate to do. Or there's just certain things that I just dislike doing, so I procrastinate on them. And then if I time them myself, then I find, oh, that really doesn't take any time at all, so just suck it up, go ahead and do it. So I'm gonna walk around the garden and I'm gonna show just different kinds of things that I'm going to be timing. Now, one thing that I am going to be timing is exactly, I've done this before, but now the configuration has kind of changed. So how long does it take me to clip one quadrant of the boxwood? And by the way, you guys, this is how I do it. These are my favorite hedge trimmers, Barnel pruners. I will put a link below. And I do have something here to kind of catch the clippings. I don't do that on the interior because I would squish the plants that are inside. So this is one thing. How long does it take me to do one section of this? That way it is also helpful if it's really hot, then I know kind of how to pace myself and which projects to do in the heat of the day and which ones are going to take too long, and I might want to relegate them to that later. So that is kind of one thing. How long does it take? And we're going to look at some other things too. Now, along with that, Stuart, if we can walk, I want to walk through the garden. It is an absolutely beautiful day, you guys. I don't know what we have done to be blessed by this, but it is absolutely gorgeous this morning. It's not real humid. The mosquitoes aren't even too bad. And it's just beautiful. Stuart, if you don't mind panning over there, I finally got that section finished. And when I do a complete reveal of this entire area, you'll see that there is indeed more color. So I had this Montrose calamint that I wanted to pot up. It smells unbelievably fragrant. It's Montrose white. I just love it. And these blooms, they just stay fresh for so long. So those were just in 1 gallon pots, and I thought, okay, they were just sitting on the potting bench, why don't I just go ahead and pot them up? Well, part of it was I didn't want to look for my gloves. I didn't, all of those kind of things that just served to be an impediment, but nevertheless, I wanted to get it done. That took like less than 2 minutes. So I finally did it. I cleaned up the mess. That inspired me to move on and do something else. So this took no time at all. So now I know that if I just have what I need in place, mise en place, have the tools that I need, don't lose my garden gloves, that I am much more likely to go ahead and complete that task. This is, by the way, where I moved the plant terrace that was on my back porch. It's here now. I've got a little bit of work that I need to do. And so one thing that I will be thinking of as I walk through is like, how long does it really take for me to prune a topiary? How long does it really take for me to repot a plant? Those are kinds of things that I'm going to start taking into account, because sometimes I only have 5 minutes, but it might be 5 minutes that helps me kind of clear my head, and I bet you've got 5 minutes here and there too. So let's walk through here. Another thing that Stuart and I wanted to talk to you guys about is that I'm always so overwhelmed with how thoughtful and considerate you guys are. But lately, I guess because of this book, you guys have been so sensitive to the fact that it takes a lot of work to write a book. I've been getting things in the mail. I've been getting presents in the mail. I've been getting sweet notes. For the past 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, there are people that are just traveling the country. I don't know how else to put it. They're traveling the country. They're on vacation, and they will go out of their way to come by Oklahoma City so they can drive by the house. And I've managed to be able to visit with most of them and give them a little tour of the garden. They've come, let's see, where all have they come from, Stuart? They've come from Lubbock, Texas. There's somebody moving her daughter to California, and she drove through. There are some people that yesterday were here from San Antonio. He was in town to visit his mom. He brought his family over here. And everybody is just so generous and thoughtful. And so it's getting to the point where I don't want you guys to think that I'm not appreciative of these gifts and notes that you send. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make you aware that they have been received and appreciated. And some of these are products that I want to share. So Stuart and I are thinking through this, and probably what I'm going to do is on one off day of the week, maybe a Tuesday or a Monday or something like that, I'll do a thing where I do nothing but share the gifts you guys sent me, share some little stories. I've been asked to do birthday videos and different things like that. So I will try to consolidate all of that and do it on one day. And now I'll have time since the book has been turned in. Some of you have asked, the book is available for pre-order. Most of you know that, but it will come out in March 8th of 2022, and I will be doing some book tours. If you want me to come to where you live, let me know that. But you can pre-order it now, and I'll put a link below. And it's very personal, in addition to, I'm hoping, giving you lots of tips. Plus, those of you that have followed me for years, I think there'll be lots of touchstones because you'll recognize some stories and stuff. Okay, so enough of that. Now let's go through here. So when I've got something to groom or something to clip, now again, I'm starting to pay attention, and I'm starting to identify as I walk through the garden in the morning, okay, how long will it really take me to do that? So how long does it really take me to just deadhead a section? And with me, it's always, do I have the equipment that I need? So if I don't have my weeding basket here, then I don't worry about it. I drop them in a pile in one location, and then later when I'm trying to stretch my legs, get up from the computer, whatever, then I can grab my weeding basket and I can come back and pick up my little designated piles. Now, this means that I'm not getting my entire backyard deadheaded, but I am getting this one section deadheaded. And this is probably taking me probably under a minute, Stuart, to do this, I'm sure. Probably under a minute. While I'm over here, I'm going to identify anything else that needs to be done. If there's anything that needs to be clipped, if I want to cut it back, if I want to pinch it back, like this coleus, I can do that. I can do a little bit of grooming. Put it all kind of in that one pile. I'll deadhead this. I will look for any kind of bugs along the way. And then I've gotten this area taken care of. It looks nicer. I feel like I got a little something accomplished, and then I can move on to the next thing. And that was probably less than a minute, wasn't it, Stuart? While I've got my scissors in my hand, I just kind of do this. Now, you guys, this isn't rocket science. I know that you guys know this stuff, but for me, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about it's about being mindful, and just being mindful to the amount of time it takes something for you to do makes you appreciate that task in the moment, gives you a sense of accomplishment. I've done this little area and now I can move on to the next little area. Or not. I can now go in, I've gotten a little something accomplished, I've stretched my back, and I can go back to the computer, or I can go back to whatever my next task was. So it can be something like deadheading. I need to finish completely pruning this. So here's another great example. So I may come by here and think, oh, I need to do this, but I'll do that later. Well, I've got my pruners here, so why not just do it now? And this is one thing I love to do with these red pygmy barberries, and that's that I kind of prune them on an angle, high in the back, low in the front, and that makes them look like they're on grade. It gives layering and elevation to the back and staggered height. This will come back out in that really brilliant purple that I love, and it will come back in a bushier, more bushy, tidy way. Won't be a thug to the things around it. I've gotten that done. I will come back and pick up the surrounding things, all of my droppings. And the nice thing about this is by the time I come back to pick up these droppings, they'll be dried out. They won't be green any longer, and I'll be able to identify them very, very easily. So I can come in and do this, deadhead these. Now I've done this, and I'll move on to my next thing. That took me absolutely no time, but before I know it, I could easily get this entire section here. So I'm not only paying attention to how long does it take to do each individual thing, but how long will it take me then in totality to like do this entire stretch, this whole section from say here to the fence. And then later I can come back and pick up all of these clippings. It's done, it looks nice, and I'll think, okay, that took maybe less than 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes. And tomorrow I'll tackle this section in 5 or 10 minutes, and before you know it, I will have gone completely around the circumference of my backyard. So again, these are things I know you guys know, but for me, it really keeps me from procrastinating because I can tell myself that takes absolutely no time at all, so by gosh, just go ahead and do it. And that is a helpful construct for me. Now, next time I come through and I'm making a pass, I'll make sure to have the appropriate tools. This time I went through and I had my clippers. Next time I'll come through and I'll make sure that I've got my heavier pruners, and I'll come back, as I promised to do the other day, and I'll clean this up. And that won't take any time at all, but every one of those tasks that I have to do, since I don't have those pruners with me, I will do on my next pass, and everything that I need to do with that type of tool, I'll do in kind of one fell sweep. So that is kind of helpful to me. Stuart, does that make any sense at all? And I now know that if I tell myself it doesn't take that much time, just go ahead and do it, then it helps me do it in bite-sized pieces, which becomes increasingly critical as it gets hot out. So I've got my scissors here. And again, you guys, I can time myself. How long does it really take? Now, sometimes I want to be efficient about this, and I just want to get a job done. Sometimes, however, I want to just savor it, because this is one of my favorite things to do, and I'll do it in the cool of an evening with a glass of wine or something, and I'll be very meditative about it. But I get immediate gratification from doing this. It doesn't take any time at all. All of these little clippings, which aren't diseased or anything, I can easily get my blower out when I come back to pick up my weeds and the things that I just deadheaded. When I come back to pick up all of that detritus from my garden, then I'll blow all of these little clippings back into the back of the flower bed because they are not diseased, they're not buggy, and I can get a nice tight profile on this. So that took very little time. I can go ahead and do the second ball, or I can save it for later. If I want to do it in a more meditative way, I'll take off any of that dead wood there. I think I'm going to remove that. If you've got your scissors with you, it takes absolutely no time at all. So there you go. There's another task that took probably less than a minute, Stuart, or whatever, but I got it done. Now, sometimes I know it's exasperating for you guys because I know you'll think, well, why doesn't she use like a garden trug, or why doesn't she use a wheelbarrow or something to have all of her contents in it so she's not running back and forth? Well, that's something that I call intentional inefficiency. I'm intentionally being inefficient because that's how I can get my 10,000 steps in. So if I'm on the front porch and I need to put gravel in every one of those urns, then I will go back and forth that many different times instead of bringing a big bucket of gravel with me, because that means I get in that many more steps. It keeps me loose, it keeps me mobile, and it helps me get my steps in doing something that I enjoy doing, which is working in the garden. So I can get my steps in versus being on a treadmill, which is not necessarily that pleasant to me. So I am intentionally inefficient to be able to get in lots of steps. So I'll make lots of multiple trips. I do it inside too, going up and down the stairs multiple times instead of consolidating it all into one basket or one bucket. I will make multiple steps because that's how I can get in my 10,000 steps a day, which is why you guys know that I have to wear my watch. I probably get it scratched. It may not be wise, but I always have my watch on because then I can set timers. I can constantly look to see what I'm moving on to the next thing. The other advantage is I'm only doing one thing at a time. I'm not doing lots of multitasking. All I'm doing is one thing at a time that takes a short amount of time. So here's another example of that. But don't miss this opportunity. Yes, thank you, Stuart, for showing my Sugar Shack button bush, which is just really, this is the first year. It's been growing here for maybe 4 years, and this is the first year that I've had this many blooms. There's a bee over here, and this is a native plant that was hybridized by proven winners, but it's such an incredible pollinator, you guys. It just attracts butterflies, bees, all sorts of those good guys. So behind Stuart, I am just doing some of this kind of clipping. I also told you guys that I often do this on days right before the cleanup crew is going to come through with their blowers. The advantage to this is also frequent clipping makes it fill out more thickly and more quickly. So the more you clip, the stronger the form that you will establish. And it will be thicker and solid before you know it. And I can do this in very short order just by having my dollar scissors that I talked about the other day. Now, I am doing this rather quickly. I would probably be a little bit more attentive to make sure that I'm doing it completely evenly if you guys weren't here. And I wasn't. Stuart's laughing. So, you can kind of see what that process is. That took no time at all. But the gratification that I'll get when I look from my kitchen window, which this is a straight shot to my kitchen window, the gratification that I'll get from seeing this strong form without all of these outliers will be immense. Okay, here's another example of how long does it really take. I'm embarrassed to say I do have a trainer. Her name is Johanna Beardhard. She's on Instagram as Strong Over Skinny. She actually even helped me with some demonstrations of some exercises for my book. So I'm finally starting to work out again. I felt before I convinced myself I didn't have time to do it, but now I'm back training with her. She came this morning. It was amazingly beautiful enough we could do it outside. Here's an example of one of the gifts that someone brought me on a garden tour. Look at this. Isn't that incredible? This was a gal from Texas. She was here for a garden tour and she brought me this mat, and it's rubberized on the opposite side so I can use it out here. And that is just an example of the kindness of people. Now, here's an example of something that my husband and I both try to do, and that's to establish a habit, it's best to make it convenient. So a lot of times we will just have, especially when the weather is nice, we will just have weights that are just in different locations around the yard, in the garden and in the house. And so while I'm standing here thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner, I can easily pump some iron. And it doesn't take that much time. I can do it while I'm just otherwise twiddling my thumbs. And yet it makes a tremendous difference for those of us that need to do more resistance training and weight-bearing exercise. So I thought about, okay, I need to go ahead and clean all of this up immediately and put it back where my exercise equipment is. And then I thought, no, I'm just going to leave these out here because it's a pretty day. And as I'm out here, I can just stop periodically and I can do some exercises. And it's amazing how little upper body exercises you need to do and for how little amount of time to get some pretty good definition in your arms. Stuart was making fun of me, and he said, he had the cell phone counter. He said, this is how I do it when I'm trying to get in my exercise and I'm shooting Linda. And he was going like this. He thought he was very, very clever. He never misses an opportunity to make fun of me. Do you, Stuart? Wiggle the phone. I know. He is unbearable, but he gives as good as he takes and vice versa. Okay, here is something else that's all about timing, and I don't have my big clippers here. I'm going to need something that's a little bit stronger than these scissors. It's about timing. I've been itching to do this, and I've realized that I've almost missed my window of time. So how do you know when the timing is right to bring in your dried hydrangea heads? Well, it's when they are papery, and when you can even hear that. They sound papery. So these are at their prime. I talked a little bit about bringing in and making dried hydrangea chandeliers, and one year I clipped large masses of these. I just bunched them together and I suspended them from the redbud trees around the garden, and in the light in the evening it was absolutely magical. You could even do this inside if you were decorating for an event. I thought how fun that would be to do for some kind of event in the fall. So but the timing is just right for these snowflake hydrangeas that are probably 15 inches long, some of them 20 inches long. Now, why is the timing right? Well, not only are they papery, but it's not past time. And here's an example of what I mean by past time. So these Annabelle hydrangeas are also dry, but they're so dry that they've become crispy. Now, I could pull all of those off And if there were just a few, I would do that. But if I wanted to dry these and bring these all in to have on my library table or someplace, or even bring to a friend, then in some cases on some of these, it would have been a more opportune time to do this, probably last week and before we had the heavy rains. I'm getting ready to do a little bit of grooming on this and cutting back. I wonder how much time that will take for me to do that. Okay, so come here. Now, the timing is almost perfect on these. I'm almost past my prime, but I cannot wait to clip these Terra Hydrangeas. This is a southern living plant. These are absolutely gorgeous. This has a little bit of browning on it. But look at those. They almost don't look real. And next year, what I've learned about this is these are so massive that next year I'm going to support this in some way. But these are absolutely incredible. I've got some more in front that I've already cut. Look at how dense those are. And listen to the difference between this part that's still drying and this part. So that is the squish test to know if it's time to bring them in. But timing on bringing them in is crucial so that they are at their perfect, beautiful state for bringing in and cutting as a dried flower versus when they get too crispy. Okay, timing. I'm just beyond excited about these Encore Azaleas. So most of mine have finally gotten established in the front and in the back. They are blooming now. And this one is in a container. I've got some over here and in the front that are not in containers. But here is what I absolutely love about this. It didn't take any time to pot this and plop this in here. It's got all sorts of fat buds on this that would have bloomed had we not had our bad Arctic blast. Would have bloomed this spring, probably a little bit in the summer, and then again in the fall. But this year, I'm getting this tremendous bloom from them. And I need to look up which variety this is, in this perfect color, because this is that coral pink that is the same hue as the geraniums in my geranium theater. If Stuart could slowly pan over there, and if you just ignore the bug spray and sunscreen on my table, that's on my dining table. It continues in a rhythmic fashion. That color does through the garden. So it's over here, and then it's punctuated in the back by that massive saucer that's got that same corally pink in it. So I love the fact that the timing on all of these is in synchronicity, and it's doing its thing simultaneously. Even the Wagelia back there is blooming in that same kind of corally pink hue. So that's about timing, and sometimes that's very hard to choreograph. So when it happens just almost by accident, that's a wonderful thing. And then always be observant to fun little color echoes, because look at the interior of this geranium that I had previously deadheaded is now putting out lots of buds, and the interior of this is that perfect color echo to what started out with the geraniums here and then continued in its rhythmic fashion all the way through the backyard. So that is just a little example of, you know, how much time does it really take to do something, and most of the time not that long. If another thing that I have started to do to make myself a little bit more efficient is, like right now I'm noticing I can't prune a lot on this Japanese maple because of its damage, but there are some low ones that I want to, low suckers that I want to remove. Okay, this takes no time at all. And I can remove these down low. For these that are up above, I might need a tool or a ladder. So what I'm going to do is next time I am in the vicinity of that ladder or that stepping stool and I'm coming back out into the backyard, I will bring that ladder back out here and set it here for when I'm ready to cut these. That way I am just being efficient, and it reminds me that this was the next task that I wanted to put on my list. Some of these suckers might also be beautiful to use in a cut flower vase, so I'll be thinking about that as well. So those are just a few of the ideas of how much time does it really take to do something, to remove some of this dead foliage from this gold dust plant. It would be better if they would break off more easily. They're fighting me a little bit, but it really doesn't take that much time to get that tidy, tailored, really greatly groomed look that I like in my garden, that I just, that makes it so much more beautiful to me. So on that note, Stuart, if you would just kind of do a back pan of the backyard to see how beautiful it's looking this time of year, and how much of a difference it makes to have that clipped boxwood back there in that pot and those other clipped forms. So there you go. The theme for today was time. So how are you spending your time in the garden today? Well, I've got a really fancy fashion ensemble on today. Turn this off if you're not interested. Since I just worked out, I've got on workout clothes. This is a BDG t-shirt. I really like loose things during the summer. I think I got this online. These are, what are these? These are very old Adidas leggings. I can't remember where I got them, but they're comfortable. These are my New Balance red tennis shoes that I just love. They look really cute, not only to work out in, but they look cute après workout when you are just running to the grocery store or whatever. So I absolutely love those. And my earrings, you guys know I love hoops, and these are just some inexpensive silver hoops I think I got off of Amazon. I'll put a link below. Such as it is, that's my fashion ensemble for today.